Hey, welcome to Starbound. I'm Daniel Pierce, and I'm going to be your narrator today. You know, nearly 500 supporters get early access to our stories. That includes Sunspire Academy and Fravor Interamiki. If you'd like to unlock early access and support our new episodes and series, tap join below. Become a Starbound member today. Now, let's get into today's story. Admiral Zonik gurgled through his respirator.
We'll learn what happens when primitives refuse proper subjugation.
The Galactic Syndicate's War Council convened in the shadow of a dying star. Admiral Zodok's tentacles writhed with satisfaction as he reviewed the bioweapon deployment schedule. His chief scientist, a being that looked like anxiety given physical form, trembled.
Physics already excellent, engineered with potent venom and evolutionary perfection. Their water will become poison. Their coast will run purple with terror. Deploy them.
The first pods hit the Pacific at 0300 hours CO time. Now they only had to sit back and watch as their genetically engineered bioweapon did the busy work for them. It would infect Earth's native environments like a virus with its highly aggressive temperament and extremely venomous sting. A few months later, a young South Korean woman stumbled into her room, huffing with the effort of carrying such a large grocery haul up 5 flights of stairs. The elevator was broken, of course. With tremendous effort, she shakily made it to her kitchen and set the groceries down. Her kitchen was a pastel paradise of pink applications and kawaii decor that belied her iron stomach. She could already feel herself salivating at the thought of eating. She felt ravenous after climbing the stairs. After some quick prep work and a touch-up on her makeup, Yuna went live.
Hello, my lovely viewers. Today, we're having something special. Something that's never been on any menu anywhere.
She hefted the Cthulhusk onto her cutting board. It was still moving, tentacles probing for escape routes.
I'm told this is some kind of new species. The fishermen are calling it the devil's squid, but I think it's just misunderstood.
The chat exploded. Yuna, no! That thing has too many eyes. Why is it screaming?
The tentacles are trying to spell something.
Ah, nah. What the hell, bruh?
Now, the trick with any new seafood,
Yuna continued, deftly avoiding a tentacle that tried to wrap around her wrist,
is understanding the anatomy. See the purple sac here? That's definitely toxic. We'll remove that first.
She drove her knife in violently. The Cthulhu's death scream shattered 2 wine glasses and gave her neighbor's cat anxiety that would last 3 weeks.
Ooh, listen to that crunch. Fresh.
Light years away, on the Syndicate monitoring station, Junior Analyst Quiven was doing routine signal intercepts when her screens flared to life. She waved a pseudopod at her supervisor.
We're receiving something.
The supervisor floated over, his gaseous form condensing with concern.
What frequency? All of them. It appears to be a human broadcast about food preparation. Oh, by the 7 spheres.
On screen, Yuna held up a slice of raw Cthulhusk, translucent and glistening.
See how it's still twitching? That means it's fresh. Now we'll add a little sesame oil, some gochujang for heat.
She popped it in her mouth, chewed thoughtfully, her eyes widened.
Oh, wow. It's like uni, but more complex. There's this strange tingling, probably from whatever makes it glow. Oh, hold on. Let me try it with rice.
Quiven's supervisor made a sound that didn't translate well, but meant roughly existential horror mixed with professional incompetence.
Get me the Admiral. Now.
Admiral Zadok watched the stream in silence. Around him, his war council writhed in various states of disbelief.
She's eating it,
his tactical officer managed.
The perfect killing machine. She's eating it with sauce.
On screen, Yuna had moved on to preparation methods.
So, You can grill it, but I prefer it raw. The texture is incredible, like if an oyster and a ribeye had a baby. Now, some of you are asking about the purple ink. Yes, it's definitely some kind of neurotoxin, but if you dilute it with soju, it makes an incredible marinade. The chat had devolved into chaos. I tried it. Hospital. Hospitals for cowards. My tongue can see colors now. Una, food truck, win. Over 20 million viewers, sir, Quiven reported weakly. The signal is spreading. Other humans are... They're going to fish markets. They're asking for the screaming squid. Admiral Zadok's chromatic skin cycled through shades of disbelief.
Surely this is localized insanity. One deranged individual.
Sir, another analyst interrupted, we're detecting similar broadcasts from, everywhere. Coastal cities across Earth. They're calling it alien sushi and arguing about whether it pairs better with sake or beer. On the main screen, Yuno was wrapping up her stream. Remember, everyone, when life gives you monster squid, you make monster sushi. Tomorrow, we'll try deep frying. I'm thinking tempura style. Let me know in the comments. Yuna out. She threw up a peace sign. Behind her, the remaining Cthulhu's tentacles were already marinating in a bath of soy sauce and cosmic horror.
Phase 2,
the Admiral commanded, his voice hollow.
Deploy the Drake Hounds. Target their land masses. Somewhere they can't possibly...
Where, sir? The Admiral consulted his Earth geography database.
This Florida place, it appears to be mostly swampland. Perfect hunting grounds. They'll never...
Quiven made a small sound.
What?
Nothing, sir. I've been reading the cultural databases about Florida. You might want to...
Deploy them! Now!
Quiven shared a look with her colleagues that transcended species, the universal expression of watching your boss make a terrible, terrible mistake. The drop pods hit the Everglades at dawn, their heat shields still glowing as they split open like metal seeds. The Drake Hounds emerged in perfect formation, 9 feet of engineered death, their scales shifting between active camouflage patterns, claws clicking against their titanium-hard chest plates. They dispersed into the swamp with predatory intent. Within hours, they established territory, marking boundaries with pheromone secretions that would terrify any carbon-based life form, any normal carbon-based life form. Ricky Thibault was having a morning beer on his airboat when he saw the tracks. He had lived in the Glades for 43 years, knew every gator trail and python nest from here to Lake Okeechobee. These weren't gator tracks.
I'll be dipped in shit,
he muttered, following the 3-toed prints to where they disappeared into the sawgrass. His trained eye caught the broken branches 9 feet up, the claw marks on the cypress trees, the remains of what used to be a full-grown alligator torn apart. Ricky smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. He pulled out his phone and opened up the group chat labeled Glades Militia. It's not a cult. By noon, 17 airboats converged on Ricky's coordinates. The assembled crowd looked like a cross between a duck-hunting expedition and a post-apocalyptic raiding party. There was Jimbo with his grandfather's elephant gun, Big Sue with a crossbow that could punch through engine blocks, and the Ramirez brothers with a net launcher they had borrowed from Fish and Wildlife.
$20 says it's another escape python,
Jimbo said, spitting tobacco juice into the water.
Pythons don't leave tracks,
Ricky countered.
and python don't do that.
He pointed to a mangrove tree that had been sheared in half, the cut so clean it looked laser-made. Big Sue whistled low.
Okay, so what's the plan?
Ricky's grin widened.
Same as always. We find it, we kill it, we grill it.
Hell yeah, brother!
Someone shouted, and suddenly everyone was checking weapons and cracking beers. They found the first Drake Hound sunning itself on a mud bank, its scales shifted to perfect swamp camouflage. It would have been invisible, if not for the thermal scope Jimbo had definitely not stolen from the National Guard.
There,
he whispered. 2 o'clock. Big bastard. The creature's head snapped up, nostrils flaring. It had smelled them. Its mouth opened, revealing 3 rows of teeth designed to shear through tank armor. Dibs! Big Sue said and fired. The crossbow bolt caught the Drakehound in the shoulder, punching through scales that should have been impervious. The creature's roar shattered windows 3 miles away in Coopertown. Then it charged. The fight lasted 4 minutes and became legend before it was over. The Drakehound moved like lightning, like hell on overgrown claws that make a mighty purty necklace. Its claws carved through aluminum boat hulls like tissue paper. Its tail strike sent Jimbo cartwheeling into the mangroves. But the Glades militia had something the Syndicate's bioengineers hadn't accounted for. Generations of Floridian energy distilled into pure, stubborn refusal to die. When the Drakehound lunged at Big Sue, she didn't run. She grabbed its jaws with both hands and held on, screaming obscenities that would have made a Marine blush. The Ramirez brothers got the net over it, while Ricky jumped on its back with a machete, looking for weak spots in its armor.
The belly!
Someone shouted.
Get its belly!
The creature thrashed, its designer metabolism burning through energy at an unsustainable rate. It had been built for quick kills, not prolonged wrestling matches with humans who thought gator wrestling was a legitimate sport. When it finally stopped moving, there was a moment of silence. Then Jimbo, covered in swamp mud and missing half his shirt, raised his beer.
Yeah! Meat's back on the menu, boys!
The cheer that went up could be heard in Miami. The video went viral in 6 hours. Bubba's Alien Barbecue Blowout featured a shirtless man in cargo shorts demonstrating proper Drakehound butchering techniques.
Now, you want to get in here between the scales, see that? Like filleting a fish, but angrier. The meat's tough, so you want to marinate it overnight. I'm using Bush Light and gator piss, but you can substitute with Coors if you fancy.
The comments section was a masterclass in human adaptability. Pro tip, the venom glands make great hot sauce. Anyone else notice it tastes better if it dies mad? My kid wants one as a pet. We cannot let Florida have all the good meat. Within days, hunting parties spread across the South. Texas responded with characteristic excess, organizing the Drakehound Rodeo and Barbecue Festival in Huntsville. Louisiana chefs began experimenting with traditional Creole preparations. Mississippi declared a state holiday. The aliens, monitoring from orbit, watched their perfect predators reduced to carnival food. They're comparing recipes, Quiven reported, her voice flat with disbelief. The one called Meemaw has posted a video titled Drakenhound Gumbo like my grandpappy used to make it. She appears to be crying with joy while stirring the pot. Sir, Drakehounds haven't been released long enough for a woman of her age to have a grandpappy do anything to our specimens. I don't know what she's talking about. On screen, an elderly woman in a floral apron lovingly added okra to a bubbling pot of what used to be the Syndicate's finest warrior beast.
Well, the meat's tough,
she explained to the camera.
but it reminds me of the gator my papa would catch during the Depression. You just gotta cook it low and slow with love. And Tony Shashiris. Lots of Tony Shashiris.
Admiral Zodok's tentacles had gone rigid.
How many Drakehounds remain?
Of the initial 10,000 deployed,
Quiven checked her data.
approximately 6.
6,000?
6 total. The Texans are keeping them alive for something called a county fair.
A junior officer burst into the command center, his carapace clicking with panic.
Admiral, the humans have started a streaming service. It's called Meal Team 6, and it's just them hunting our bioweapons with commentary.
On the secondary screen, a man in tactical gear was stalking through a swamp, whispering to his camera.
All right, y'all. We got fresh sign here. See that track? That's a big boy, probably 800 pounds. Now, what you want to do is come at them from downwind. They got good noses, but they can't smell for shit if you've been drinking. Pro tip from your big boy Rick.
Admiral Zodok watched his perfect killing machines, products of millions of years of directed evolution and genetic manipulation, reduced to entertainment.
Prepare my flagship.
he commanded.
And summon the honor guard. We end this personally.
Sir, Quiven ventured carefully, perhaps we should reconsider. The humans seem to have an unusual relationship.
They're primitives who lucked into spaceflight. They haven't even achieved unified planetary government. We are the Syndicate. We have conquered 1,000 worlds.
Yes, sir, but those worlds didn't have cooking shows.
The Admiral's chromatic skin flashed through 17 shades of rage.
Set course for Earth. Target.
He consulted the intelligence reports.
This Bass Pro Shop in Arkansas, where they're holding their Unity celebration. We'll see how they fare against warriors instead of animals.
As the fleet prepared to depart, Quiven pulled up the Earth Cultural Database one more time. She searched for human food culture, emotional eating, and why humans are like this. The results made her emit a subsonic whine of concern. She looked at the eager honor guard boarding their ships, weapons gleaming, ceremonial armor polished to mirror brightness. They had no idea what they were flying into. Maybe, she whispered to herself, I should update my resume. The site of the Earth Alien Unity Barbecue Cook-Off had once been Arkansas's largest Bass Pro Shop. Now, it was something else entirely. Part refuge camp, part tailgate party, part interspecies diplomatic summit, and all human chaos. Smoke rose from 100 makeshift grills, but it was more than smoke. It was memory made visible, carrying stories in every molecule. The scent of charcoal and mesquite mingled with the gochujang and lemongrass, with sofrito and berbere, with flavors that had no names because they hadn't been invented that morning by someone who thought, what if we add some miso to the barbecue sauce? Quiven stood transfixed by the scene. She'd come to study how humans were adapting to alien meat at the molecular level, but she also found herself watching something far more complex than just molecular adaptation. Fascinating, she murmured into her recorder. The olfactory response is triggering massive hippocampal activation. At the Korean fusion station, Unikim's viewers watched her work with speed and confidence, but her hands moved with inherited memory. My grandmother, Una told her camera, brushing sesame oil into a still-twitching Cthulhu's fin, used to say that every dish carries the hands that taught you. See this folding technique? She showed me when I was 7. Her grandmother showed her during the war, when they had to make food stretch. She paused, inhaling the familiar sesame scent. Now, I'm using it on Space Squid. She would have laughed so hard. I miss her a lot. I'm glad to share a piece of her memory with you all. Across the field, Ricky Thibault's massive smoker, a repurposed shipping container that had seen better days, belched aromatic clouds that drew people like moths. He'd driven 16 hours straight from Florida, his truck bed full of Drakenhound meat and his grandfather's rub recipe, written on a bar napkin and guarded like state secrets. You smell that? He asked, no one in particular, lifting the lid. The scent hit like a physical force, pepper and brown sugar, vinegar tang, and meat so tender it was falling apart. 3 people immediately started crying. Oh, that's not just meat, an older woman said, wiping her eyes. That smells like Sunday, like home, like my daddy's still alive and we're all together. This was happening everywhere. The molecular structure of alien bioweapons was being transformed into something else. Into community. Next to the drink station, because humans will make a bar out of anything, Aaron Jones was explaining the chemistry to a group of fascinated college students while mixing what he called Drakenhound venom margaritas. So here's the thing, he said, muddling lime with the neutralized venom sacs. Humans are the only species we know of where taste and smell bypass the thalamus and hit the limbic system directly. Know what that means? We're weird, someone suggested. We're time machines,
Aaron corrected. Every flavor is a memory waiting to happen. Every smell is a story. These aliens thought they were sending us weapons. Instead, they gave us new chapters. The crowd around him had grown. A Pakistani grandmother teaching her granddaughter to fold samosas with Drakenhound filling. A group of veterans comparing notes on which parts tasted more like MREs and whether that was good or bad. Children darting between adults' legs, stealing bites and creating flavor combinations that would horrify traditionalists, but somehow worked. See that? Quiven spoke into her recorder, watching a toddler share his juice box with another child, then both of them trying Cthulhu's nuggets together. Communal eating patterns establishing from infancy. We're literally building new cultural memories around alien bioweapons. At the center of it all, something beautiful and strange was happening. Traditional enemies were sharing grills. An Armenian baker was showing a Turkish chef how Cthulhu's Inc. made incredible bread. Mexican and Tex-Mex cooks were having their eternal salsa argument, but now with alien peppers that grew from Drakehound droppings. You know what this reminds me of? Father Miguel, who had driven up from Houston, stood watching the crowd with Rabbi Sarah from Little Rock. Loaves and fishes. But instead of a miracle, it's just us. The music, a chaotic playlist that seemed to be controlled by committee and algorithm in equal measure. Shifted from K-pop to Johnny Cash to something with entirely too much accordion. Nobody complained. Bodies moved between grills and tables in patterns that looked random, but weren't. Strangers became friends over shared plates. Friends became family over secret recipes. My mother's guacamole. Anna Gutierrez was telling a group, grinding spices with volcanic rock. 27 ingredients, 4 kinds of chocolate, and now Cthulhu's ink for color. She always said food was love you could taste. These aliens? They gave us new ways to love. The observation struck Quiven, monitoring from orbit like a plasma bolt. Commander, she reported to her supervisor, her voice unsteady. I'm detecting something unprecedented. What now? Are they making dessert from our surveillance drones? No, it's serotonin levels, oxytocin production, dopamine spikes. The entire gathering is showing neurochemical patterns consistent with what? Joy. Collective, synchronized joy. They're bonding over the processing and eating of our bioweapons, creating new neural pathways, new cultural connections. We may as well have sent them communion. Her supervisor's chromatic skin went pale. That can't be true. Food is fuel. Eating is survival. Not for them. Quiven pulled up scan after scan. Look at this. When they share food, their brains light up like stellar cores. Mirror neurons firing in synchronization. They're not just consuming nutrients. They're consuming experiences, sharing memories, creating meaning. But the bioweapons have become a part of their story. Their children will grow up with these tastes as comfort food. Their poets will write about the summer the sky rained monsters and humanity made soup. We've given them mythology. The supervisor was quiet for a long moment. How do we fight that? Quiven's tendrils drooped. We can't. How do you defeat a species that turns existential threats into potluck dinners? It was into this beautiful catastrophe that the Galactic Syndicate arrived. The warships descended like angular thunderclouds, their gravity drives making everyone's beer cans rattle. The music cut out. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the kids stopped running. For a moment, the only sound was meat sizzling on grills. Then the flagship's bay doors opened, and the honor guard descended. They were magnificent in their awfulness, 12 feet tall, covered in ceremonial battle armor that shifted between dimensions, weapons that could unmake matter at the molecular level. They moved in perfect synchronization, a dance of death older than Earth's sun. At their head, strode Warlord Canuck, chosen for the Syndicate, victor of 100 campaigns. His forearms carried weapons from 4 different conquered civilizations. His crown of living metal writhed with captured souls. He surveyed the assembled humans, taking in their primitive cooking implements, their chaotic mingling, their complete lack of proper terror. His atmospheric processors immediately began analyzing the air composition, and what they found made no sense. Protein chains from 100 worlds, spice molecules that shouldn't exist in nature, chemical signatures of joy, comfort, belonging, all bound together in aromatic clouds that made his threat assessment protocols stutter.
Insects.
His voice boomed from speakers that materialized from folded space.
I am Canuck, the render of flesh. I am the one who seeded your oceans with death. I am the one who filled your swamps with terror. Your pathetic world ends now. Surrender or...
Wait, a human called out. You're the guy who sent the food? The warlord's speech derailed.
The food?
A ripple of recognition passed through the crowd. Murmurs of, "Oh, him!" and "Bro, thanks for the meat!" and "My kids love that squid stuff." From the orbit, Quiven watched the warlord's biometric readings spike with confusion. "Sir," she transmitted urgently, "I recommend immediate retreat. The humans are exhibiting pack-bonding behaviors. With the bioweapons, they've named some of them." Ricky raised his beer.
You the alien that's been dropping off free seafood and barbecue? Man, we appreciate it, but you could have just asked if you wanted to come to the cookout. Silence!
Canuck roared.
Those are bioweapons! Instruments of your destruction!
"Yeah, but..." A teenager with green hair shrugged.
They're really good with sriracha.
The warlord's upper left eye twitched. His neural implants were processing thousands of scans, showing him something truly deranged. Humans exhibiting pleasure responses to substances that should trigger primal fear. Their amygdala, the fear centers of the brain, were dormant. Instead, regions associated with comfort, pleasure, and social bonding blazed like supernovas.
You dare mock the Syndicate. You feast upon our terror weapons as if they were...
"Food?" Una suggested helpfully. "Because that's what they are now. Here, try some." They held up a perfectly grilled tentacle, glistening with sauce. "I've been experimenting with fusion. This is the Cthulhu's with Gochujang glaze, but I added honey from Mrs. Patterson's bees. She's the lady with the sundress over there. And a splash of that venom from the Drakehounds. Once you neutralize the paralytic compounds, it adds this amazing umami."
How dare you We are here to destroy! Stop! Stop! Stop laughing! Stop laughing!
But the humans weren't laughing. They were doing something worse. They were sharing. The spell of fear broken, they had returned to their natural state of aggressive hospitality. "He looks stressed," someone said. "He needs a plate," another agreed.
Someone get this man a beer.
"Does he eat meat? He looks like he eats meat." "I got vegan options," someone called out. "The Drakehound mushrooms are incredible. They grow where the blood's soaked in." "That's not actually vegan, you know. Besides, what vegan's gonna show up to a barbecue?" someone else moaned. Quiven watched the alien's confusion with professional interest. "They don't understand," she murmured. "For them, consumption is just resource acquisition. They don't have the neural pathways for what we're doing." She was documenting something unprecedented. An entire crowd of humans synchronizing their movements, their chemistry, their intentions, all around the simple act of trying to feed someone who'd come to kill them. "Hey!" An old man in a Vietnam veteran cap pushed through the crowd. Jerry Horvath, retired mechanic, grandfather of 6, and keeper of his late wife's recipes.
You! Big guy!
You ever had brisket?
Canuck pointed a plasma cannon at him.
Stand back, Primitive.
Jerry didn't flinch. 60 years of marriage to Dolores Horvath had immunized him against intimidation.
Son, I asked you a question. You ever have real Texas brisket? Not that fancy molecular gastronomy stuff you probably got up there in space. I'm talking 14 hours over mesquite, dry rubbed with love and spite.
He pulled a piece from his plate, the meat falling apart, smoke ring visible, bark caramelized to perfection. The smell hit everyone within 10 feet. Not just meat and smoke, but something deeper. Time, memory, love transformed into carbon and protein.
This here was Dolores's recipe. She passed last spring, but I'll be damned if I don't keep making it. See? That's what you aliens don't get. We don't eat. We remember. Every bite's got a story. Every meal's got a meaning.
The crowd had gone quiet. Jerry's weathered hands trembled slightly as he held out the plate. Behind him, the smoke from the grill carried 40 years of family dinners, first dates, celebrations, wakes, Sunday afternoons when the kids were small and time moved like molasses.
My Dolores used to say that love was the only spice that mattered. Everything else just helps you taste it better. She'd make this brisket for anyone who needed it. New parents, folks who'd lost someone, strangers who just looked hungry. Fed half the neighborhood after Hurricane Harvey.
He stepped closer to the towering warlord. The honor guard raised their weapons, but Jerry didn't even look at him.
When we share food, we share ourselves. My Dolores is in this brisket. My grandmother's in her cornbread recipe that my daughter makes now. My daddy's in the way I hold my tongs. Hell, now your space cows are in here too, turning into memory right alongside everything else.
The warlord's sensors were screaming alerts. The human's pheromone signature was disturbing. Grief and joy and welcome all tangled together, with molecular traces of every person who'd ever sat at his table embedded in his skin.
You came here thinking we were weak because we're messy, because we argue and fight and can't agree on a damn thing. But put us around a table, give us something to share, and we become something else. We become family, all of us. Even the weird ones. Especially the weird ones.
Jerry's eyes glistened.
Your monsters? They brought us together. Every time one showed up, neighbors helped neighbors. Strangers became friends over figuring out marinades. Kids who'd never talked before bonded over whether Cthulhu was better grilled or fried. You didn't send us weapons. You sent us excuses to feed each other.
The warlord's plasma cannon wavered. His universal translator was having a breakdown trying to parse concepts his species had no words for. The closest approximation it could manage was something like ritualistic resource sharing for non-survival purposes, enabling pack expansion beyond genetic boundaries, which didn't capture even a fraction of what Jerry meant.
Food isn't just calories to us, Jerry continued. When my Dolores was dying, she couldn't talk much near the end, but she could still taste. I'd bring her little spoonfuls of her favorites. Her mama's peach cobbler, the first thing she'd ever cooked for me. That disaster of a casserole our daughter made when she was 8. Each bite was a whole conversation, a whole life. She died with the taste of our first anniversary dinner on her lips.
Someone in the crowd was crying. Several someones. The kind of crying that happens when truth hits you in the chest. Jerry smiled, the expression carved by decades of joy and loss.
So, I'm gonna ask you again. You want some brisket? 'Cause my Dolores
would haunt my ass if I let anyone leave hungry. Even a 10-foot-tall space lobster with anger issues. She'd say, Jerome Horvath, that boy's obviously hangry. Fix him a plate before he does something stupid.
The silence stretched. Around them, humanity held its breath. Grills sizzled. Somewhere, a baby cried and was quickly soothed. Then, a child pushed through the crowd. Brayley, 7 years old, missing her 2 front teeth, carrying a paper plate loaded with a chaos of foods that shouldn't work together but somehow did. "Here," she said, holding it up to the warlord. "I made you a plate. It's got some of the squid stuff and the lizard meat and mac and cheese because mac and cheese makes everything better." Kanak looked down at the small human, her face earnest, sauce smeared on her cheek. His sensors analyzed her. Minimal threat level, negligible muscle mass, no weapons. What they couldn't quantify was the power of a child who'd grown up in a world where monsters fell from the sky and became Sunday dinner.
You don't fear me.
Brayley shrugged.
"You're just hungry. Everybody gets mean when they're hungry. My mom says so."
She pushed the plate higher, standing on her tiptoes. The assembled crowd held its breath. Quiven, watching from orbit, found herself leaning forward despite the vast distance.
"See?"
Brayley continued, pointing at her carefully arranged plate with the seriousness only a 7-year-old could muster.
"This part is from Mrs. Kim. She makes the tentacles taste like candy, but spicy. And this is from Mr. Ricky. He let me help with the sauce. And this mac and cheese is mine. I made it myself. Mom helped me, but only a little."
She looked up at the warlord with eyes that had never learned proper fear.
"When you share food, you share happy. That's what Grandpa Jerry says. And you look like you need some happy."
The honor guard shifted nervously. They'd conquered worlds, shattered civilizations, made entire species extinct. But none of their training had covered what to do when a small human offered you mac and cheese as a peace offering. He slapped the plate from her hands. It fell in slow motion. The carefully assembled offering, the child's gesture of welcome, the last chance for peace. It splattered across the dirt, mac and cheese mixing with alien meat and hope. Brayley's face crumpled. She didn't cry. She just looked at the ruined plate, then up at the warlord, confusion and hurt clear in her eyes.
"Why? Why did you make it all wrong?"
she asked, small and bewildered.
"I made it special for you."
The crowd's mood shifted like a tide turning. It wasn't the waste of food, though that was bad enough. It wasn't even the rejection of hospitality, though that cut deep. It was the breaking of something sacred, a child's innocent belief that everyone was just one good meal away from being friends. Ricky set down his beer with deliberate care. The sound of glass on wood was very loud. Yuna's smile faded, replaced by something that would have sent her ancestors' enemies running. Jerry's expression went stone cold, the kind of cold that comes from watching someone hurt a child at what should be a celebration. Around them, 300 humans looked at the aliens with expressions that would have sent their xenopsychologist into therapy. It was the look of parents, grandparents, neighbors, strangers, united by one simple truth. You don't make children cry at a barbecue.
Well,
Forleman said, cracking his knuckles.
Looks like you just became the main course.
But it was Quiven who said what everyone was thinking, her scientist attachment finally cracking.
"You stupid bastard. You just rejected communion from a child at a meal. Do you have any idea what you've done?"
The warlord sneered.
I refuse to be poisoned by a primitive.
"No," Quiven interrupted.
"You just declared yourself food."
What followed would be studied by xenosociologists for generations, though most would refuse to believe it. It wasn't a battle. Battles have tactics, strategy, rules of engagement. This was something older, deeper. The reaction of a species that had spent millions of years learning that the difference between friend and food was whether you shared a meal. The Honor Guard, trained in 17 forms of combat, masters of weapons that could split atoms, found themselves facing an enemy they couldn't comprehend. Humans, who had just watched someone make a child cry at a barbecue. Big Sue hit the first one with a folding chair, but not before snagging his weapon's power core.
These might make good smoker fuel,
she mused. The Ramirez brothers tangled another in a banner reading, "Welcome to Flavortown," all while debating whether the alien's carapace would work better as a serving platter or a griddle. Una never stopped streaming, her commentary shifting to the clinical tone of a cooking show.
So, when we tenderize your space warlord, you want to aim for the joints. See how Ricky's using that meat tenderizer? That's technique. Also, note the marbling on this one. Definitely grass-fed, or whatever they eat in space.
But it wasn't just violence. It was worse. It was purposeful. Someone had fired up the grills again.
Hey!
A pitmaster from Memphis called out, already sectioning off one of the fallen guards with professional efficiency.
These guys got some good marbling. Check out the cross-section. It's like Wagyu, but angry.
The fighting turned into something else, a grotesque combination of battle and meal prep. Humans are persistent predators, after all. They just usually persistence hunt their food at the grocery store. Through it all, humans talked. Not battle cries or threats, but the same chatter that had filled the air before.
You think they're corn-fed or grain-fed? Pass the marinade. Anyone got a bigger cooler? Save the organ meats. Jones wants to trot something.
The aliens' energy shields, designed to stop plasma bolts and particle beams, did nothing against grandmothers who treated them like particularly different lobsters. Their armor, proof against radiation and hard vacuum, had never been tested against humans who had learned to crack Drakehound shells with modified nutcrackers. What truly broke them wasn't the violence. It was the casualness. The way humans multitasked murder and meal prep. The way children had shepherded away not in panic, but with promises of dessert soon. The way someone had restarted the music and people were fighting to the rhythm of Sweet Caroline. Canuck himself faced Jerry Horvath, who had produced a carving knife with the casual ease of someone who had processed 1,000 Sunday roasts.
You know what your problem is?
Jerry asked, dodging a plasma blast that turned a picnic table into atoms.
You don't understand what makes us human.
He moved with surprising grace for a 70-year-old with a bad hip, each movement economical.
It ain't our technology, it ain't our unity. Hell, it ain't even our stubbornness, though God knows we got plenty of that.
The knife found a gap in the warlord's armor, sliding between plates.
Is that we're the only species dumb enough to look at something trying to kill us and ask, I wonder what it tastes like with barbecue sauce?
Another dodge, another precise cut. Jerry worked with the patience of someone who had spent decades breaking down tough cuts.
But more than that, we're the only species that turns eating into communion. Every meal is a ritual. Every shared plate is a peace treaty. You sent us your worst, and we turned them into excuses to know our neighbors, to teach our kids to remember our dead.
The warlord stumbled, his systems failing, purple E-core leaking from a dozen expertly done cuts.
The Cthulhusk? My neighbor Lynn taught me 6 ways to prepare them. We cook together every Tuesday now. Haven't missed one since his wife died. The Drakehounds? Got my whole block together for the first hunt. Kids who'd never talked are best friends now. Their parents are starting a cookbook.
Jerry stood over the fallen warlord, knife still steady in his weathered hands.
You didn't send us weapons, you sent us communion, and that's why you lost. Because you can't beat something that gets stronger every time it eats together.
The battle, if you could call it that, lasted 18 minutes. When the smoke cleared, The surviving members of the honor guard huddled in the center of what had been their formation, surrounded by humans who were already debating marinade options and cooking times.
Please,
One of them whimpered, translator crackling.
we surrender. Just don't
What? Yuna asked brightly, her knife glinting.
don't eat us.
The crowd exchanged looks. Someone snorted, then another. Within seconds, the entire assembly was roaring with laughter. Not cruel laughter, but the kind that comes from recognizing absurdity.
Eat you? Buddy, you ain't been marinating nearly long enough. Besides, we got standards. You gotta earn your place on our plates. These bioweapons, they earned it by bringing us together. You made a kid cry. That's just bad seasoning.
Brayley had been found and comforted, given a new plate piled twice as high. She stood near the surrendering aliens, mac and cheese clutched protectively. You can have some if you say sorry, she offered, because children understand forgiveness in ways adults forget. But you have to mean it, and you have to share nice. But Canuck wasn't there. The warlord had fled, using a personal teleporter in the chaos, abandoning his troops.
Well, someone said, that's just rude. Leave him before dessert?
Aaron Jones shook his head.
No home training at all.
Jerry cleaned his knife.
Yeah, don't worry. Universe isn't that big. And humans? We're real good at tracking down dinner.
The next day, the Galactic Council was in emergency session, representatives from 100 worlds arguing about the human situation. The Syndicate delegation was notably absent, having collectively decided that any species that weaponized cooking shows was too dangerous to engage. Quiven, who had submitted her formal resignation 6 hours ago, was giving her final report. The bioweapons achieved a 100% integration rate, she stated, her tentacles folded in what her species considered resignation. However, the results were unprecedented.
Explain,
demanded the council elder, a being of pure energy who had never needed to eat in its billion-year existence. Quiven pulled up the data. The Cthulhusk infestation led to the formation of 1,247 new community groups, 3,891 recipe exchanges, and what humans call Squid Squad, an international organization dedicated to sustainable alien seafood farming. Coastal communities that had been struggling economically are now thriving. Tourism has increased 400%. Several human nations are petitioning to have Cthulhu's breeding grounds protected as cultural heritage sites.
And the Drake Hounds
have been domesticated, partially. The surviving specimens are being bred for what humans call county fairs. The hunting of feral populations has become a cultural bonding ritual. Crime rates in affected areas have dropped 60%. Apparently, nothing brings communities together like communal monster hunting. They've started youth programs. The elderly teach the young how to track, hunt, and prepare drakehound. Gang violence in several cities has nearly disappeared because, quote, we're too busy smoking these space lizards to beef with each other. The council elder fluctuated wildly.
This is demented. Bioweapons don't create social cohesion.
They do if you eat them, sir. The humans have a saying. The family that slays together stays together. Also, a shared meal is a shared life. Also, pass the sauce or catch these hands. They have many sayings.
What about military casualties?
Quiven's chromatic skin shifted to embarrassment. 17 humans were hospitalized during initial contact with the bioweapons. All have recovered. They now run the most popular food blogs on the planet. One of them has a show called Eat What Eats You, where he teaches children to cook dangerous animals. It has won several of their awards. Suddenly, every screen in the chamber flickered. Their security feeds, the holographic projectors, even the personal devices all showed the same pirated broadcast. Yuna Kim smiled at the camera, her kitchen immaculate as always. Beside her stood Florida Man, whose real name, the galaxy would learn, was actually Todd, and Ricky's emotional support alligator, now wearing a bow tie. Behind them, a banner read, Cooking with Cosmos, Season Finale. Hello, Galaxy! Welcome to a very special episode. Today's dish is something we've only recently acquired. The main ingredient was quite rude to a child, so we're going to prepare it with extra care. The camera panned to her cutting board. The assembled representatives of 100 civilizations made sounds of horror in 100 different ways. Now, Una continued unfazed, when preparing Warlord Brain, you want to slice thin. It's quite tough otherwise. The flavor is interesting, sort of like uni, but with delusions of grandeur, very rich in iron and irony. She demonstrated with professional composure. The texture is somewhat gelatinous, so I recommend a quick sear. You want to lock in those juices, and what our friend here called the souls of conquered worlds, personally, I think it's just MSG. The trick, Todd added, leaning into frame,
is not to overthink it. Brain's brain. I've got gator brain, pig brain, and now alien warlord brain. They all fry up about the same, though this one's a mite tougher, probably from all the scheming.
Ricky's alligator bellowed agreement, or hunger, it was hard to tell. Una took a bite, chewed thoughtfully.
You know what? It needs acid. The ego makes it very heavy. Some lime juice should cut through that nicely.
She squeezed a lime over the preparation.
Much better. Bright, fresh, with just a hint of megalomania.
What pairs with Space Tyrant? Someone off camera asked.
Honestly, a nice Riesling. Something sweet to balance the bitterness of defeat.
The broadcast continued for 20 minutes. By the end, 3 species had withdrawn their membership from the Galactic Council. 17 had entered defensive pacts with each other, specifically against Earth, and 1 had begun building a Dyson sphere just to power their shields.
The scariest part, Quiven noted as the broadcast ended, is that this has become the most watched episode. 3 billion humans tuned in. The comments are all recipe suggestions. Someone has already started a restaurant called Hostile Takeover that exclusively serves aggressive species.
The council elder dimmed noticeably.
So, humans won by...
Eating, sir. They won by eating. Together. The bioweapons gave them something to gather round. Hunt together. Cook together. Argue about together. Every attack made their community stronger. Every monster became a memory. Every death became a dinner that brought people together.
And the message to the galaxy?
Quiven pulled up the final frame of Una's broadcast, where she looked directly into the camera and smiled.
Don't start none, won't be none. If you do start something, bring your own sauce. We'll provide the sides.
Back on Earth, at what was now called the first annual Intergalactic Barbecue Memorial Cook-Off, life had returned to its new normal. The alien meat had been portioned, stored, shared. Recipes were being traded like currency. Children who had been raised on Cthulhu's nuggets would grow up thinking monster squid was as normal as chicken fingers. Brayley sat with a new plate of food, carefully arranged, each section from a different neighbor. Jerry Horvath had made sure she got extra mac and cheese and taught her the secret to his dry rub.
It's love, little one. Don't tell the aliens that.
You think they'll come back?
She asked her mother. Her mother, watching Una's stream on her phone, smiled.
Oh, honey, after today, I don't think anyone's going to bother Earth for a long, long time.
Brayley nodded sagely, then returned to her plate. After all, the Cthulhu really was better with sriracha. The great Bass Pro Shop cook-off had wound down. But its effects rippled outward. In Seattle, a support group for former gang members bonded over Drakehound jerky recipes. In Tokyo, kindergarteners learned counting by sorting Cthulhu's tentacles. In Cairo, a grandmother who hadn't spoken to her neighbor in 30 years knocked on her door with a casserole made from that space stuff and 40 years of grudges dissolved over shared meals. Humanity had faced extinction and turned it into a potluck. They had looked at bioweapons designed to destroy their civilization and asked the most human question possible: but is it good with garlic? And somewhere in the depths of space, a lone syndicate analyst named Quiven filled out her application for Earth's new intergalactic exchange program. In the section marked Dietary Restrictions, she wrote simply, "None. Willing to try anything once." They probably did have good food at the office parties. After all, everything tastes better when you share it.